The so-called adults all have the consideration that to live with the loan of the house is not the same as to live without the loan of the house. To have oneself's house is always a family's imperative ideal. And I think one thing is a little bit like the loan of the house to a people. And that might be the life ideal, the so-called living or life vision. However, to decide one's life vision or living vision is not always an easy task to everybody. So I want to share my opinion on this issue. To live happily in everyday life is not possible. However, to live a happy life maybe having the plausible approach to achieve it. So there are two things that count on this issue. I think the first is the intention. Intention plays an important role deciding the limit of one people's life. If you set up the wrong intention of yourself, then you might be feeling lost or feel frustrated and even get the failure, such as when somebody says he wants to be the general director of the company, and when he carry out his ideal, he doesn't have enough time to be enjoying with his family. And another scenario is like that. One student doesn't want to do his homework for playing more video game. However, he cannot always achieve high standards of scores in the school very often. And these two cases are both about the wrong settlement of the intention. So the intention setting is the paramount thing to decide what your life ideal is. And the second things that is essential to the building up of the life ideal is the mind flow. The mind flow means that the state of the mind that you do something or to live in some way. Even the tempo of everyday life seems different. However, the good state of the mind, the mind flow, is often stable and calm. So the state of mind, the mind flow, decides one's happiness very much. Such as somebody says he wants to be somebody eminent in the society. However, he doesn't understand what the mind flow of that eminent person has. Then he might make a wrong mind flow setting about himself, because that may be not about happiness and comfort, but just with the stress and the turbulent mood. So mind flow setting is also important to the ideal of life. And after knowing this, I think the next step is to inspect yourself. If you really have the best state of the intention and the mind flow setting, maybe to talk with your friend is a good way. To read book is also the same. As the former. However, I want to suggest another alternative approach to cope with this problem, and that is make words count on this phase. That is, to make the word you choose related to your intention and mind flow as a framework to observe the details about them. This approach is very emphatic, especially in objectivity, but with self-condition consideration. Because every word has its point on your intention and mind flow. And when you diligently and earnestly use the different words, to check out your intention and mind flow, that will be like that you're having a lot of friends to talk with you, but in a very stable mood and tempo. So you might get a more objective but powerful solution to your intention and mind flow setting. And in the future, when you compare your intention and mind flow to any others, you will not feel any bit of jealous or uneasy, because you have already get through the time that compare yourself to a more idealized condition that you had ever set. Life is difficult sometimes, but it's not always hard to overcome, because there are still many lovely or cuddly approaches that can help you deal with the problems in your life. And at hand, there are always the words that you can carry on with yourself. To be useful as being. So on this foundation, I think maybe life can be more interesting and challenging, but charming. Okay, this is today's lecture.